Right. I believe that should be us going live. There we go. Hello. How is everybody doing? Hello to Blinkster if you're still watching. I assume you are, but hello. How's everybody doing? How's things? How's life, the universe, and everything? How has your week been? What's up? That one. Did it actually? No, it didn't. Ah, well. Okay. Hello. How's everybody doing? Hello, Tom. How you doing, man? How's things? How has your week been? And I think that's all good on YouTube. Yeah. Sorted. I'm really good. Awesome. Nice. That's good. What have you been up to this week? Hello, Janazek. How you doing, man? My what you call it? YouTube chat isn't updating. I can see it on the stream, but I can't see it on my screen. Wonder if I need to. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Hello, Simon. Hello, Phil. Hello, Just Do It Yourself. How you guys doing? Wow, you're planning on buying your retirement car so early? Ah, no, we already had the smart car and it's now gone. Oh, you got a 3080 today. Nice one. Awesome. That's sweet. Which one did you get? Hello, Essentialist. How you doing, man? Did you fix that power supply? No, I had a look inside and I couldn't see a great deal. What I saw was that there was a resistor burned out, and so I have a sneaking suspicion that resistor failed, which caused the capacitors to instantly load current, potentially load current in the wrong direction, which if it's an electrolytic capacitor, that's how you make them go boom. Yeah, that's... Help him in Totten. Nice. I have no idea where that is. What do you mean YouTube isn't working properly? That like never happens ever. I know. Madness. Ordered it from Overclockers yesterday, delivered today. Got the Gigabyte Vision OC. Nice. I didn't realize stock was that plentiful. Nice one. Is that was it just in stock at regular price, or was it exorbitant, or what was the situation like? PC's back in the corner. It is. The H1 is on the floor behind me. It will be going back to NZXT, and they have a replacement one on its way. I think there might be a slight delay because of allocation problems, but I have a replacement on the way. I checked the rest of my hardware that was connected, and it all seems fine. My suspicion with it is that it was potentially just a random failure, as that can happen, but more importantly, because the failure happened while the system was completely turned off, it was just connected to the wall. You know, there is a tiny amount of current draw that the power supply does output when plugged in and switched on at the power supply, but you know, the system isn't running. Basically just to send enough power to the power button so that when you press it, it will turn on. But yeah, that's the... Because it was off, as opposed to it was under load, and it was there was a serious amount of ripple, for example, that the components don't seem to be harmed at all, which is good. And further to that, like I said, I had a look inside the power supply. I dismantled it as much as I could get without destructively dismantling it, because I do know that they want it back to inspect it themselves, and it's probably best if I don't, you know, snap things in half, because then they wouldn't know, you know, the professionals who should be looking at this wouldn't know what went up. But yeah, like I said, I had a look inside and it looks like a resistor burned out. It's just a standard like couple watt resistor. Like it's not that much bigger than a standard little one. A bit bigger than this one. This is like an 1/8 of a watt resistor or something like that. But yeah, it was just a little through hole resistor, and it burned out. And my guess is that when it burned out, it either overcharged the capacitors or reversed the polarity of the capacitors, and they went boom. Was it an NZXT power supply? It is, although it's manufactured by Seasonic. There's no fixing it. And then, technically speaking, you could replace that blown resistor and the 2 blown capacitors, and in theory that might solve it, but in practice, one, I wouldn't want to issue that repair myself, because the power supply is very much the heart of your system, in that if it fails, it can and does often take out everything else with it. So me bodge jobbing a few new parts in is probably not the best bet. I'd rather just send it back to them and have them repair it if they're going to. But yeah, that's the brunt of it. And yes, there can also be an amp or two over 5 volts for the what do you call it? For things like USB standby power. What's your feelings on big channels like LTC almost leeching smaller channels like yourself on views with clickbaity, high production quality videos? At least that's what it feels like to me. So the first thing that I would say is that if you look, there's a website called Social Blade, and you can look up how many views different, like any YouTube channel, Twitch channel, Twitter, Facebook, a lot of stuff. You can look up specifically for YouTube how many YouTube views they get a month. And if you look at pretty much any tech channel, the current views are half-ish, maybe a third of what they were a year ago, pretty much exactly. Maybe March last year was a real big peak. And they're even down from sort of this time of the year before, generally speaking. So there is a trend across the platform, across pretty much every tech YouTuber, that as COVID restrictions lifted and therefore people were going back to work, and as the GPU shortage made a lot of people not very interested in tech right now, the tech views market went down pretty considerably. And you can see that for both Linus and for channels like myself. So I wouldn't say that I would attribute it specifically to, channels like Linus, leeching views. But on the, what do you call it? Sort of clickbaity side of things, it kind of comes down to personal preference. I think with Dr. Cuttress, Tech Potato, who occasionally pops in, was saying that based on the Veritasium video, which actually I just saw Ish did made a comment about, that what do you call it? Dr. Cuttress was saying that the for tech, the idea of a clickbaity title like Veritasium was suggesting is almost counterintuitive, because it then makes it more difficult for people who are just looking to, see a review of this mouse, or I don't know, whatever else tech you fancy. If that's not in the title or the thumbnail or whatever, it can be very difficult to find that, or to know that that is a video that you should click on when it comes up in the search results. So generally speaking, I personally try and err on the side of including enough information for you to know what products I'm looking at, or whatever I'm testing or comparing, whatever, rather than going the full what's his I don't have the browser open. There's been a few videos where I have ended up not watching one of Linus's videos because the title and thumbnail gave me no understanding of what the video was meant to be about. I can't remember. I think it might have been a little while ago, but yeah, a lot of the titles that he has these days and thumbnails, obviously he's in all of them, but secondary to that, the titles are very, I suppose, generic rather than specific, which I understand is what he's going for, but at the same time, it can be difficult to actually know what's you're getting yourself into there, So, yeah, I don't think that it's the end of the world, but it's definitely a balance. Because as Ish says, clickbait does work to a degree. Do you know any good RGB coolers that are compatible with MSI Mystic Lights? Well, I'm sure that MSI will probably sell you one themselves. Otherwise, I think you would be looking for one of the more generic ones. When I say generic, I don't necessarily mean, AliExpress. I mean not a Corsair or a, well, obviously not Noctua or Be Quiet, but not someone who would directly have their own ecosystem of RGB stuff. Since the pricing of GPUs and mining have been booming in prices, views have gone down in general. Yes, exactly. That's the key thing. ARGB. So ARGB is addressable RGB, which means instead of just using a 12 volt and then red, green, and blue ground pins, and you just control how much power goes, or I suppose comes out of each of those. Addressable uses controllers built into the strips. So what you do is you provide it with power, data, and ground, and the data is a digital signal that lets you tell it that you want LED 14 in the chain to be, red, but you want LED 15 to be green, you want LED 16 to be blue, whatever, and you can address every single LED technically, although normally they don't let you. It kind of depends. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, that's the grouping. When he said RGB cooler is compatible with MSI Mystic Light, my brain did jump to AIO, but I suppose that any air cooler with some RGB fans that you can plug into a standard fan header, I assume, would also work. What do you think about the Asus TUF GT501 case? No idea. Let's have a look. Interesting. Kind of looks like the sort of case that you would see in like 2012, you know? Looks okay, technically speaking, from a gamer's nexus point of view. There isn't all that much front airflow because most of it is that solid panel, and you only have the sections of drilled holes on the side and bottom for air intake. But it also does look like that's quite a depth, so there might actually be enough surface area altogether to give decent airflow. Again, I'm just looking at this from you know, looking at the pictures. Looks like you got some carrying handles on the top. Quite cool. Decent enough amount of space in the back. Bit of cable management. Got a power supply basement, that's always good. Front panel is mesh. Oh, okay. At least on the one on their website. The image on the website makes it look like a solid rather than a mesh. Unless you can get a mesh front option. Yeah. Yeah, it looks okay. I mean, looks like you have a reasonable amount of front radiator support, although might depend on your configuration, because there doesn't look like there's a lot of space between the sort of back of the front fan and the start of the power supply basement. But otherwise, looks okay. Nice one to share. The Be Quiet 500DX is a fantastic case to build in, has good airflow. Highly recommend it if you're looking into cases. Nice. I have had a couple of what you call it? Couple of Be Quiet cases in, and they're generally pretty nice. I think I might actually still have the Silent Base 801 or whatever it is pretty much underneath me in my not a basement. With the reversible motherboard tray, quite fun. But yeah, them or Fantex is generally my go-to for recommending cases. The Enthoo Evolve X is still quite probably my favorite case, although I don't really review cases all that much because, well, they're big and I just don't really grab me too well. But yeah, decent. They had 2 cards in stock. I was a little high, but it was in stock. They do have a few other cards, or at least they did. Nice. Well, fair play. I mean, congrats on grabbing one, and enjoy, for sure. I was looking up. I have an RX 6600 XT now, which is sweet. And I finished editing that today. And so through that, the editing process, I was looking up availability of the both RTX 3060, 3060 Ti, and the RX 6600 XT. And interestingly, the 6600 XT is almost fully in stock. Like pretty much every version of the card is in stock with 10 plus units available, at least overclockers, and all for around £400, whereas the 3060 and 3060 Ti's pretty much aren't in stock, and the only ones that are for sale for about 600 instead. So while potentially if you're looking at the MSRP, the 6600 XT shouldn't be quite as close in MSRP to the 3060 Ti. In terms of current pricing, it's a pretty reasonable option. I was torn between 3080 and 3080 Ti. I went for the cheaper card in the end. That's fair. I mean, you are already talking about a pretty considerable amount of money, and the performance per pound benefit does definitely plateau a fair bit. So yeah, it's understandable, and I think that's a pretty fair choice. So yes, ostensibly they hired a UK-based PR agency, which I suppose might not sound like a lot, but trust me, it is, because it means that all of the sorts of communications that I was dealing with stop internally rather than those sorts of requests making it out to media directly. So it having a localized presence is definitely a good thing. And yeah, I haven't reviewed any MSI laptops since then. I think I would still like to. I'd like to have a look at them, see how they're doing now. But yeah, I have reviewed a couple of things like motherboards and bits and pieces like that. I missed the Dragon Squad idea, even if it didn't really go far. It was quite funny because it was quite a interesting, or I suppose novel idea at the time. That campaign, if you like, took me to Austin, Texas, where I met Wendell for the first time, because I then met him in Taipei, also for the Dragon Squad, actually. Yeah. So there was definitely some benefits, but yeah, it kind of stopped pretty abruptly. Hello, Budget Bench. How you doing, man? How's things? I've just run a few benchmarks so far, GTA 5 and which one's that? It's not Rise of the Tomb Raider. Star Wars? Anyway, Sauter, and they looked awesome. Can't wait for a proper gaming session. Nice. As I said, do enjoy. We're all jealous. I mean, except for the people who already have, 3080s and stuff. Yeah, fair enough. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, that's the one. I knew that it was that. Brain thought it was that one, but couldn't work out what the O stood for. But yeah, nice. Oh, it's SWTOR is Star Wars: The Old Republic. That's what I was thinking of. That's the one. Oh, do I need to worry about Google collecting my data in my Google account or my YouTube account when I'm watching videos or anything? You know what I mean? So, the generalized answer for that is no. They are definitely collecting your data when you're using any Google service and Google product, which YouTube is. However, the need to worry about that collection comes from, I suppose, the consequences of it, the consequences of them collecting that data, or the risks of them collecting it, and generally speaking, the worst you will get from that is better targeted advertising. that's what Google is all about. They are an advertising company first and foremost, and they just happen to provide some services these days that enable them to serve ads and collect data. But the what you call it? Come on, Brian. So it says Google collecting my data on YouTube is fine. When they track all my purchases and visits to unrelated pages, not so much. Yes, Google Analytics, GStatic, and Google Fonts. Yeah, it's very hard to get use the internet without touching or at some point contacting a Google server, right? Like that's in the same way that it's almost impossible to not contact an Amazon AWS server. Because when AWS or when Google goes down, yeah, that's it. Bye bye, internet. In fact, we saw with there was I can't remember what it was. It was like Fastly or something went down, and it took Reddit, it took part of Amazon, it took like a load of sites down because one service provider, one cache provider or something, I think, went down. So yeah, madness. Hello again, Chris. Nice one. Is there anything special about the desktop behind we can know? There's some graphics cards on top of it that you can't see. There's no graphics card in it because there was an RX 6600 XT in it that that video will be out next week, I think. Yeah, Wednesday, I think. Yes. And I have another gaming chair. Well, the gaming chair, another noble chair that arrived that I have to unbox and review. But it's the fabric version of this that's brand new, and I'm quite excited about it because, while this is nice, especially when it's real hot out, which it has been, it gets, your arm gets a bit sticky to the in this case faux leather. It's just a bit kind of so I'm interested to try the fabric one and see how that goes. Keep it and send back your one. No, I'm keeping this one. I'm probably rotating actually. I have 3 office / gaming chairs in this room alone, and technically another 2 chairs upstairs. So yeah, plus the new one. Do you think Google collecting data from everyone, not just me? Yes, that is kind of the whole point of Google in general, is that they collect data on everything and everyone, and if you think they're not collecting data, trust me, they are. So yeah, the benefit, or the it's not necessarily a benefit, but the implication, I suppose, is that there is, you could argue, safety in numbers, in that Google is collecting data from everyone who uses their services, and even, I assume, some people who don't, through things like Google Analytics and that sort of external facing tool. So because they're collecting from everybody, they just collecting from you isn't the big problem. Tom, there have been a number of those. I distinctly remember that when Fastly went down, Reddit and some of Amazon stuff went down, and there was a partial down as well as a full down not that long before it. My guest computer doesn't even have a gaming chair, just a basic office chair. That's a very normal way to go about things. I just happen to be given a load of these, so I dot them around where I can. Hello Harry, how you doing, man? How's things? Do graphics cards have an impact on video editing? Say in Vegas 17, I have an EVGA 980 with a high-end GPU assist me. So it very much depends on the program, how much sort of GPU utilization you get. Generally speaking, something like a 980, as far as I'm aware, is going to be perfectly passable for your for a what you call it use case. The the only reason you'd want to potentially get newer is if you're using a program that can benefit from, say, NVIDIA's RTX features, specifically their tensor cores. I know that some of the Adobe new advanced features, for example, in things like After Effects, can use those sorts of hardware features, and so that could be a benefit. But in general, video editing is generally more CPU bound rather than GPU, and yeah, that's the general answer, I suppose. The only thing that iFixit ProTech toolkit needs is a mini lamp. Do you know, that's not a bad shout. My iFixit kit's just down there, and yeah, that's a pretty good good addition to that. Anonymity of the masses, indeed. That's the benefit, I suppose. No worries, Harry. Yeah, like I said, it is primarily CPU, with some programs being able to utilize some GPU features, but it does vary. Are all HDMI ports on graphics cards the same? I have a 1070 with a broken one and a 460 with a functional one. So the short answer is no. The long answer is probably. So there are a lot of different variables that could be at play, like what mounting method the housing of the port uses to mount to the board. It might be a case that it uses four, two prongs on either side. It could be that it's a wider full port. It could be built in as part of a combo port with another port above it. The pinout should be the same, but there's no guarantee that it definitely will. They could have broken it out into all of the pins in a full straight line. They could have broken it out into two lanes or two rows, or into three and staggered in different patterns. So there's no guarantee. You obviously can assess the situation, but there's a good chance that it might just be easier for you to go to RS Electronics or RS Components and purchase the correct, a new correct one, and resolve that way instead, if that's how you want to, get it fixed. In fact, actually, I think there might some might even be the wrong way around sometimes, occasionally. So, yeah. Nice, nice one. Congratulations. That's a slow clap moment. Shouldn't HDMI be easy? In theory. In practice, no. But do you know what they're doing with all of this data? So, yes, they're, as I said, they're targeting advertisements to you. That's the main thing. The data that they collect on YouTube is used to push videos that you it thinks you'll want to watch, and in an attempt to get you to stay on the platform and therefore have more ads served to you. And things like Google searches, again, that is data that is used to target advertising to you to, again, convince you to click on those sponsor links or those banner ads or whatever that they serve on different people's websites. But yeah, that's kind of it, really. I mean, you know, a whole lot else, but I'm not Google, so I can't tell you. On my monitor, I thought I may turn up my overdrive, then I discovered the lovely thing of inverse ghosting even on low. I don't know why I even did it, it was fine without it. Nice one. I was testing a monitor today, the AOC U28 G2 UX, I think, which is a 4K 140 Hz panel, and I set overdrive to strong. And sometimes with the different overdrive settings, it can be quite difficult to notice that sort of inverse ghosting. It's you know, it's easy enough to see when you use a 1000 FPS camera, but you know, to your eye it can be a bit difficult. This one, I set it and then almost immediately turned it off because it was disgusting to look at. So yeah, and I think I ended up leaving it off, like again, leaving, as you say, leaving overdrive completely off rather than setting it to weak or to medium. And yeah, it was much better on 0. 1000 FPS, it's the Sony RX 100 Mark 5A, which is literally just a little point and shoot, but runs at, in my case, technically it's 960 FPS because I want it to output a 30 FPS final clip, because that's what I record my videos at, and it's better for my timeline interpolation if it's at 30 rather than at 25. But point is, yes, it is technically, it's a 1080p final clip, but when running at 960 FPS, it's closer to like 800p rather than 1080p. But it's still 960 FPS in this, which is fantastic, and has been very useful for me. Is there any way to make them collect 0 of my data? No. The answer is straight up no. Even if you stop using Google services like YouTube, like Google Search, they still collect data on you from any website you visit that has Google Analytics or Google AdSense ads or DoubleClick for Publishers ads. So no is the answer. You really cannot get away from Google or Amazon, or technically even Facebook, because of how ingrained their stuff is in everybody else's size. But yeah, no. Astorstock, hello. I'm running a 3080 and a 3900X with a 750 watt power supply. Thought it might be too low, but using a power meter at the wall never seems to draw more than 600, even when stress testing. I suppose that wasn't really a question. So the only trouble that you might run into is not necessarily with the steady state load, which is what you were measuring there. It's with the peak loads, where when you first load up a game, or when you get to a really demanding scene, or something that requires the GPU to go from kind of toddling along to full on every core and die is active at the same time, even for just a split microsecond. That jolt can be enough to trigger your power supply's overcurrent protection and then shut the system off. I've had that happen before, but again, if you're currently able to game on that system with no problems, then nice one, should be all good to go. Again, the only thing to I suppose keep in mind is that power supplies degrade over time, so in, I don't know, 5 years time, you might want to consider replacing that power supply, because as the capacity essentially degrades, your components won't. In fact, there's a good chance that they might get slightly less efficient over time, and so you don't want those two points meeting or overlapping the other way. But yeah, for a long time, it's kind of all good. A little advice, if you don't mind. I've got my new card. I'm looking to sell my 1080 Ti. Should I sell it with the water block, or put on the original cooler and sell the block separately? So while I can understand why you would want to sell it with the block, obviously that's the easier situation for you. Having the water block on it may will detract from a large group of buyers who won't want to water cool it. And even if you do sell it with the stock cooler, a lot of people would rather just buy the, would rather not have to reinstall that cooler and then them keep or sell on the water block. So I suspect that you would have better luck selling it with the original cooler on and the water block separately, or even the water block bundled in if you want. But yeah, I think you wouldn't be you'd have difficulty selling it with the water block installed, just because of the limitation on how many people would want a water cooled card. Sell it with a water block, but with the reference cooler on, or sell the water block separate. There you go. No worries. Oh yeah, I have a kind of a strange list of videos. I mentioned on the Discord that for the next couple weeks, there will be what I would call a steady increase in both pre-roll and fully sponsored videos. This is one of those times of the year where companies all of a sudden have money, and this sort of basically this month will essentially support me for a reasonable amount of time, especially since as whole views are down and things like sales through my Amazon affiliate links are down. So this is a very helpful thing for me, and I try and keep the sponsored content as something that you would still enjoy watching, as much as possible. Of course, maintaining the guidelines of what they're after, but yeah, just as I said in the Discord, slight heads up. Increase in sponsor vids is great. Hope it leads right up to Christmas. I kind of doubt it will. I suspect that this is going to be a sort of 3-4 week period of a whole load of them, and then probably not much right until, I would probably say, about 2 weeks before Christmas, when about 5 different companies will all email me asking if they can do pre-Christmas content. Oh, and by the way, we can't send you the thing for another week. Oh, and by the way, we need 2 weeks to validate or approve your content. Ask me how many times that's happened. But yeah. Tom, how much do you want for that? How much are you looking for your 1080 Ti? I assume either with or without water block. I mean, knowing Chris, he would probably take it with the water block as well, but that's how much are you looking for? Oh, good. And I can't even ban them on the... Tom, can you murder that bot? My Twitch chat in Streamlabs OBS doesn't let me moderate comments for some reason, which is kind of annoying. I am signed in as me. Weird. Anyway, will there be more than 8 cores in a laptop gaming CPU or a Threadripper on a laptop? So there will at some point, and depending on who you listen to, it'll actually be pretty soon, thanks to Intel's Alder Lake chips. Although I should probably make it clear that Intel's Alder Lake chips are a big little Intel hybrid technologies design, which means that they will have, I think the mobile chips are set to have up to 8 normal cores as we know them today, but then also up to, I think, 8 what are called Gracemont cores, but low power, low performance cores, ones that will be significantly smaller in physical size as well as in sort of performance and in power draw, and will be much more both efficient but also much less powerful, can do much less work in the same amount of time, for example. So those you will have, I guarantee you that Intel will market them as a 16 core chip. However, the answer is no to things like 16, what you might call real cores or full cores. In the immediate future, I think it will take another generation or so before that might happen, and the main reason I would argue is power and thermal constraints, because while the Ryzen 5900HX, which is AMD's technically top end mobile chip, is an 8 core, it is
Sorry to hear your views are down.
Thank you very much.
Sure, people are
Sorry
just
to hear
on
your views
holiday.
down. Sure,
Keep up the
people
great
are just
content.
on holiday. Keep up the good content. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I explained it earlier. There's quite the mix of reasons, but yeah, it's all right. I'm keeping going. Yeah, the answer is probably not. The 5100HX is an 8-core, and it generally maxes out the thermal output of any laptop you put it in. So, yeah. The bot did text to speech. Fancy. Ah, nice. I honestly didn't think that it would. Starting from 4+2 as a QA sample up to 8+8. Got you. Am I right in understanding that the desktop Alder Lake, what are they, Alder Lake K? I think. Those desktop chips are also going to be 8+8, or are they going to be 8+16 this generation, or is it 8+16 next? I haven't had time to sit through the Intel Architecture Day that I think was today morning or something, or last night for us perhaps. Yeah. Will there be a 3090 and a laptop? Again, at the moment the highest end laptop chip is a 3080 mobile, which is basically a 3070 desktop chip. Actually, it's a good bit slower than that, but there is no current 3090 mobile chip, and if there was a 3090, that's not happening. Like, you're not going to get a desktop 3090 and a laptop, because how are you going to cool 400 watts worth of TDP? 8 cores, 16 threads, plus 8 small cores. That's the one. So it's 8 cores plus 8 small cores for a total of 24 threads. Got ya. That's the one. No worries, Tom. Chris, did you see Tom's reply? Would it be a 3090 laptop, as in not a 3090? If they were going to, the answer is yes, it would be. It would be a... if I had to make an assumption, it would probably be based on the 3080 die, J102 instead of 104. But it would be probably very similar performance, similar core count to a 3080 desktop, but with a much lower clock and much lower TDP. Hello Joe, how you doing, man? Have you missed much? I seem a bit down this week. That's because I am. Yeah, chemicals. What can you do? I'm fine. Busy. I've been working on my response time tool, which I've now broken out into a breakout board with some foam around it to do light isolation, as I put it to a monitor. I'm running into some issues with power regulation with this, which is a bit of a pain because turns out that 5 volts from your USB port is almost never actually 5 volts, which is fantastic. And so yeah, stuck with that. And I've been writing the code to analyze all the data that it captures as well. So it's kind of quite an involved project and a lot of work. Hello John, how you doing, man? No questions, just saying hi. Well, hello. Glad to have you for 7 minutes. Just stick a gigabyte power supply on it. I hear they make some crack. I would call that crackling power supplies rather than cracking. Just a grammar correction there. Pi seem to actually want like 5.2, which is annoying. That's true because when I plugged in, so a brief talk you through this circuit. What you have is an Adafruit Itsy Bitsy M4, which is SAMD51. That's the one. So it's an ARM CPU rather than a Atmega. You have a button with a pull down resistor. You have a potentiometer, and you have a little breakout board with a light to voltage sensor on it. The potentiometer is there because the light sensor prefers to be powered at 5 volts, but the microcontroller can only take in 3.3. So what you have to do is you take the outputs and use the potentiometer to effectively cut off the bottom of the values and shift it all down, which is fine. I can deal with that. The problem is that if the sensor is actually being powered by, say, 4.8 volts instead of 5, well, the potentiometer value was set up for exactly 5 volts. So when this is only seeing 4.8, that's actually a pretty significant drop. And so the brightness level that the analog to digital converter on the board sees is actually a lot lower than it should be. And so technically speaking, you could solve that problem by measuring the voltage and then twisting the little dial on the potentiometer to bring that signal back up. But I'm trying to design this so that I can put this in an enclosure, and the only thing that you as the end user who wants to use this needs to know is to push the button, and that's pretty much it. Or launch the program and then push the button. You know, I don't want to have to crack out a multimeter every time I go to use this, or anyone else would go to use this, as I'm making this whole project open source. So I want it to be as one-click solution as possible, and so I need to resolve that. And I know what I need, I just don't know which part, which is why I have some friends helping me out, because I'm going mad. In 2021, you think they would finally have found a more modular power system that is universally accepted across components. You'd think so, but no. What's crazy is I plugged in, so I plugged that into a USB hub that I have upstairs, and the USB hub was only giving off 4.2 volts, but everything was still working. Like, what? Yeah, that was great, and I was I need to solve that problem to make it a more functional tool. Will you be able to buy it assembled, and if so, how much? So in theory, I am designing it in a way that if I will be able to offer a pre-built kit, essentially, that you could then go and buy and use. Yes, I don't really know how much I would charge for that. I think in terms of hardware cost, it's probably in the £20 to £30 range. So I suppose factoring in some labor, maybe 50 or so. But yeah, the idea, like I said, is it's a response time tester. Although technically, you could also use it for input lag testing. So that might also be something that I implement later on in a firmware and software update. But yeah, work it out. And I'll be doing a full video on the project once it's done, so keep an eye out for that. I think it's hard to make a gaming laptop perform as a gaming desktop, and if there will be one, it's really expensive. Yes, so the problem of laptop versus desktop is size and weight, and I suppose, well, that's technically size. You like, there's a reason why your graphics card, just in terms of volume, would never fit into literally any gaming laptop. It's because it requires that much surface area to keep just the graphics card cool, let alone the CPU. So you need a whole lot of surface area that you just cannot fit inside a laptop, which is why they have to be lower power, and if they're lower power, they're going to perform less as well. Joe, yes, that's I'm not factoring in the costs of the stuff that I bought that aren't in use. I'm factoring in the cost that I'm quoting there. It's for the components that would go into the final unit. In fact, I think I'm probably missing a couple of decoupling capacitors at the moment that I would need to add, but yeah. They did. It was the Predator 9 or something. But yeah, it was absolutely massive, and it was basically a desktop with a screen attached. Anyway, that'll do for this week. Thank you guys very much for watching. As always, you know, videos tomorrow, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and links in the description if you want to support in any way you fancy, if you aren't already. Yeah, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.